Aviation here in Canada this week to in part pitch Saab's Gripen fighter jet is now heading home, with the Fed still weighing whether to pull out of a planned purchase of dozens of American-made F-35.
Well, what I've said is I don't believe that we've had enough jobs created and industrial benefits done out of the F-35.
Friends, welcome back to the channel. What I've said is I don't believe we've had enough jobs created or enough industrial benefits out of the F-35 contract. It's not enough here in Canada. That wasn't just routine political grumbling. That was a signal flare. Because this week, as Ottawa quietly reconsiders its purchase of dozens of American-made F-35s, Saab's Gripen fighter jet packed up and headed home, after making its pitch not just to Canada, but to a watching world. And then something bigger happened. Portugal, a founding member of NATO in 1949, one of the original 12 signatories, walked away from an F-35 evaluation and chose the Gripen instead. Not a hedge, not a minor procurement shuffle, a founding NATO ally declining America's flagship fighter program. The reason? According to reports citing Portuguese defense sources, concerns about political conditionality in U.S. defense relationships. Think about the optics. Portugal watched Washington's rhetoric toward Canada escalate, talk of annexation, ultimatums, pressure through shared defense structures like NORAD. And Lisbon drew a conclusion. If this is how the U.S. treats a G7 neighbor and long-standing ally, what leverage might it hold over us? Defense procurement is never just about performance specs. It's about sovereignty.
Portugal's Air Force flies aging F-16AB aircraft from the 1990s. Their service life is closing fast. Modernization isn't optional. The F-35 had been the frontrunner through 2024. Financing discussions were underway, industrial offsets were being negotiated. Delegations visited Lockheed Martin facilities. The path looked set. Then, January 2026, a change in Washington, a shift in tone. Suddenly, the calculus wasn't just cost per unit or stealth capability, it was political risk. The F-35 is more than a jet. It's a networked weapons system deeply integrated into U.S. logistics, software updates, and sustainment pipelines. Choosing it binds a country tightly to American defense infrastructure. For decades, that was seen as reassurance. Now, at least in Lisbon, it appears to be seen as exposure. Choosing Gripen, especially one with industrial participation tied to Canada, sends a message: diversify dependence, protect autonomy, reduce vulnerability to political swings in Washington. If this decision holds, it may be one of the most significant NATO procurement signals in decades, not because Portugal is a military heavyweight, but because of what it represents: a crack in the assumption that alignment with the US automatically equals stability. When allies start pricing political unpredictability into weapons contracts, that's not just a sale lost, that's a strategic shift. And Canada? It now sits at the center of a very uncomfortable conversation about jobs, sovereignty, and whether buying Americans still guarantees security or just dependency. This story isn't about one fighter jet, it's about trust. Now, here's where it turns from procurement story into geopolitical warning shot. According to reports circulating in European defense circles, the pressure wasn't subtle. Ambassadorial warnings about reconsidering NORAD cooperation, commerce-level threats hinting Canada's Five Eyes status could be questioned. The message, implied or explicit, was clear: buy American or face consequences. Even if some of that rhetoric was bluster, the signal landed. Portuguese defense planners aren't sentimental, they're analytical, and they started asking the kind of questions bureaucracies rarely say out loud. If Washington can threaten Canada, its NORAD partner, its closest military collaborator, over fighter procurement, what happens when Lisbon disagrees with US policy on sanctions, trade, or China? If logistics chains for the F-35 are controlled through American software updates, spare parts pipelines, and export authorizations, what prevents that leverage from being used politically? The F-35 isn't just an aircraft, it's an ecosystem. Sustainment flows through US-controlled systems. Software updates are centralized. Certain components remain subject to American export rules. That's manageable when trust is stable. It's risky when politics become volatile. So the calculus shifted. American fighters create American leverage.
American leverage creates vulnerability. Vulnerability is unacceptable for a sovereign state. Portugal didn't denounce the United States. They recalculated risk.
The reported proposal on the table, 18 to 24 Gripen E fighters. Delivery window 2029 to 2032. Estimated program cost roughly 2.5 to 3 billion euros. Aircraft, integration, training, support. But here's the strategic core. Diversified supply chains. Swedish design, Canadian assembly, British engines, European sustainment footprint. Fewer US-controlled choke points. Reduced exposure to American export restrictions. Greater operational autonomy. That isn't anti-American sentiment. It's hedging against political uncertainty. Defense procurement always reflects threat assessment, and increasingly, allies are factoring political unpredictability into that equation. When alliance trust becomes a variable instead of a constant, procurement stops being about hardware. It becomes about sovereignty insurance. And that shift? That's far bigger than 24 fighter jets. If this holds, it's the kind of procurement decision that echoes far beyond the hangar floor. For Lockheed Martin, 18 to 24 jets isn't a balance sheet disaster, it's the symbolism that stings. Portugal isn't just another mid-sized buyer, it's one of NATO's original 12, a country that signed the North Atlantic Treaty in 1949. When a founding member walks away from an F-35 evaluation and does so citing political risk, every allied capital takes note. Because precedent is powerful. If Lisbon frames the decision as sovereignty preservation rather than budget trimming, it changes the permission structure across Europe. It signals that opting for alternatives isn't ideological defiance, it's strategic hedging. And the reasoning matters more than the aircraft count. Portugal didn't publicly position this as a cost play, though the Gripen is generally cheaper to acquire and operate. It didn't argue raw capability comparisons. The underlying logic, as reported, centered on political exposure, that volatility in Washington introduces risk into tightly integrated US-controlled systems. That's the real story, not stealth versus multi-role performance, leverage versus autonomy. The F-35 ecosystem is deeply integrated, centralized logistics management, software dependencies, multinational sustainment pools. Those features are strengths inside a stable alliance framework. They become pressure points if political trust erodes. If allies begin interpreting integration as vulnerability, that's a structural challenge for the entire model.
Now, zoom out. Several countries outside Western Europe have already opted for Gripen variants, including nations in Latin America, Eastern Europe, and Asia. But a Western European NATO founding member making that choice reframes the debate inside the alliance core. Spain is an obvious case to watch. Madrid needs to replace aging FA-18 fleets. Iberian defense coordination is routine. If Portugal demonstrates that a non-US fighter can be fielded without operational penalty or diplomatic fallout, Spanish planners gain political cover. Italy's situation is more complex. Rome is an F-35 partner with domestic assembly involvement, but cost overruns and program debates have been ongoing there for years. A mixed fleet approach, retaining F-35s while diversifying with European platforms for certain roles, becomes easier to justify when another NATO member has already crossed that bridge. France, of course, never joined the F-35 program. It operates the Rafale and champions European strategic autonomy. Portuguese diversification strengthens Paris's long-standing argument. NATO membership does not require uniform American hardware. This isn't a collapse of alliance unity. NATO has always fielded mixed equipment, but what shifts here is the narrative logic. If the stated cause of a procurement pivot is political unpredictability from Washington, that's blowback, whether intentional or not. Pressure meant to reinforce alignment can end up encouraging insulation. Defense decisions are rarely emotional. They're actuarial. They price in risk. If political volatility becomes a line item, procurement becomes a referendum on trust. And when trust starts showing up as a vulnerability in spreadsheets, the consequences don't stay confined to one contract. What Portugal's decision underlines is simple. NATO can function with diverse procurement serving a common defense, but alliances are about trust as much as capability. That debate has already been bubbling in Germany, where Berlin is evaluating the F-35 both for nuclear sharing roles and as a replacement for aging aircraft. Significant political constituencies there have expressed unease about deeper dependence on U.S. systems given recent American political volatility under President Trump and its impact on allied relations. Portugal's public move away from the F-35, explicitly linked to concerns about U.S. unpredictability, gives those voices real-world validation and makes arguments for alternatives more credible in German domestic politics. Germany might still procure a batch of F-35s for specific NATO missions, but a broader fighter fleet renewal could shift toward a mix: Saab's Gripen from Canadian production, additional Eurofighters from European lines, or even other regional platforms. Whatever the path, Washington's market shrinks if sovereign autonomy becomes a procurement priority. Countries like the Netherlands and Denmark remain committed to the F-35, but their decisions were made under assumptions about allied reliability that recent political behavior, from tariff threats to public spats, has called into question. If Washington's leverage over F-35 logistics and support becomes perceived as a political weapon, Portugal's precedent shows alternatives do exist, and that shifting away from U.S. dependency is possible without abandoning NATO. Portugal's choice also validates Canadian manufacturers specifically. Lisbon could have ordered European-built Gripens, but the emphasis on Canadian production matters. It signals that a factory in Montreal isn't just serving Canada, it's capable of supplying NATO partners looking to maximize sovereignty. That symbolism cuts both ways, buying from a nation resisting external coercion rather than from the one applying it. And on the economic side, the logic is straightforward. A multi-billion euro program cycle operating costs far lower than the F-35s means Portugal can get modern capability and maintain national control. Lower per-flight costs, fewer restrictions on training and maintenance, and European-focused weapons and support chains all reinforce operational independence. In other words, capability and autonomy for less, rather than capability with strings attached. That's not ideological opposition, it's strategic calculation, and increasingly, it's a calculation others in NATO are watching closely. Gripen was designed from the start to integrate European weapons. Meteor, Iris-T, European-guided munitions, they slot in without asking Washington for permission. Saab works on European timelines with European contractors aligned to European operational needs. By contrast, integrating non-US weapons onto the F-35 requires American approval, American prime contractors, and American scheduling. That's not conspiracy, that's how the program architecture works. It's centralized, it's controlled, it's efficient inside a trusted system. But if trust wobbles, control starts to look like constraint. For Portugal, the issue wasn't just sovereignty in the abstract, it's about the missions they actually fly. Air policing, maritime patrol over the Atlantic, NATO rotations. They need flexibility, predictable sustainment, and autonomy in training cycles. Gripen offers that with fewer external choke points. And this is where the political backfire becomes stark. Rhetoric meant to demonstrate strength instead signaled unpredictability. Pressure intended to enforce alignment triggered hedging. The louder the ultimatums, the clearer the vulnerability looked. No marketing campaign from Saab could have made the case as effectively as visible political volatility did. Every public threat reinforced a single conclusion: tightly integrated US-controlled systems carry political risk. That doesn't mean American equipment is inferior. It means political risk is now part of the cost calculation. And here's the uncomfortable reality for Washington and Lockheed Martin. Even if political leadership changes in the future, the precedent doesn't disappear. Risk, once demonstrated, gets priced in permanently. Procurement cycles stretch decades. Defense ministries plan beyond election calendars.
Portugal's reported decision signals something bigger than one lost sale. It signals that sovereignty has become a primary procurement variable inside NATO's core, not just in smaller or non-aligned states. 8 countries now operating or selecting Gripen variants, more evaluating alternatives. That doesn't dismantle NATO, it diversifies it. The alliance isn't collapsing, it's recalibrating, balancing integration with autonomy. And once allies learn that diversification is possible, that alternatives are viable, that operational independence can coexist with alliance commitments, that knowledge doesn't get unlearned. This isn't triumph, it's consequence. When power is perceived as conditional, partners build insulation, and insulation, once installed, tends to stay. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe our channel to get new updates.